There are some people who are afraid of flying and some who are more afraid of drowning. Well, how about we combine these fears with an airplane that crashes into the middle of the sea, with our survivors still inside the vessel as it sinks to the ocean floor? Will they be able to keep their wits about themselves, avoid the potential dangers contained in the waters, and scavenge enough supplies from the wreckage to escape? Well, let's see if we can find our way out as we try to beat No Way Up. Our movie begins with a woman drowning, only for this to be revealed to be a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare of a man named Brandon. He's a bodyguard for the governor of Los Angeles, and assigned to watch over the man's daughter, Ava, as she goes on a trip to Cabo with her boyfriend Jed, and their mutual pal Kyle. Turns out her mother was that woman from the nightmare, a regret of Brandon's past that still eats at him, as he was apparently unable to save her previously. Hopefully he can do a better job with protecting Ava here. Well, he's not off to a good start, as he doesn't defend against the little girl that runs right into her. This is Rosa, traveling with her grandparents, who is frantically looking for her lost stuffed teddy bear. Fortunately, Ava just happened to have found it earlier and returns the bear to the child. No hard feelings over the accidental bump and spilled coffee. The two bond a bit before their flight. How wholesome. Surely nothing bad will happen in the near future to ruin these precious moments. Surely. The passengers now board their plane, and even though Ava has first-class seats, she chooses to sit in coach just to be with her friends. Very loyal. Brandon, though, is more than happy to accept his specialized seating, so the two are separated for now. Joining him in the front just so happens to be that family met prior. The young girl Rosa, her grandpa Hank, and her nana named, Nana, apparently. They're off to a smooth flight for a while, despite Kyle's best efforts to prey on Ava's fear of flying, with her boyfriend comforting her by saying not to be afraid of what could never happen. Seriously though? Could never happen? I mean, it's one thing to be rational and optimistic, but it's another thing entirely to completely ignore actual possibilities or be that delusional to reality as if airplanes have never crashed in the history of humankind. Well, he will learn this fact soon enough, and the hard way too, as disaster is just about to strike. Turbulence is felt by everyone on the plane, as the pilot steered right into a flock of birds. Don't worry though, he assures everyone that everything will be just fine. Yeah, not for those poor feathered friends, it's not. And maybe not for everyone else too. As Rosa looks out her window to see that the turbine engine couldn't handle the impact, as it starts to catch on fire. Well, that can't be good. Time to fasten your seatbelts, everybody. A stray piece of metal is soon ripped from the wing as it deteriorates and somehow manages to strike the side of the plane, causing an explosive decompression as a massive hole is created in the side of the aircraft. The poor souls nearest to this, as well as anyone who didn't follow the instructions of the seatbelt sign, are soon sucked out the side of the cabin and forced to take a free skydiving lesson. About half the passengers and crew have already been sent flying when the pilot finally manages to crash land the plane in the ocean. Unfortunately, the sudden impact of doing so sends seats crashing into one another, crushing some in between. Others still are hit by the shrapnel sent scattered about from this, such as Brandon, who takes some jagged metal to the chest. Well, that certainly could have gone better, but it could have been much worse as well. At least some of the people did survive, such as Ava, her friends, and a flight attendant named Danilo. Now they just have to get out of the airplane before it sinks, taking them with it. Or they could, just sit there in disbelief, allowing themselves to be taken below the ocean's depths. I mean, that's another option too, but not one I would recommend personally. Fortunately for them, the aircraft doesn't sink too far before it just so happens to land on a coral reef, and even does so at an angle that creates a convenient air pocket for everyone in the back of the plane. Ava finally remembers Brandon and goes to check on him, but surprisingly, the man comes to her first, emerging from the water not only having saved Rosa, but her nana too. Will mostly save the older woman as she's unconscious and not breathing, so Danilo starts CPR. And for once, a movie shows it fairly well with rapid and strong compressions. It could be displayed better, but I've seen a lot of films demonstrated worse. Regardless, though, it's successful and Nana comes to spitting out the ocean water she inhaled. Seriously, people, learn CPR. It can actually save someone's life. The little girl and her grandmother understandably ask about Grandpa Hank, and Brandon doesn't sugarcoat it for them, he's dead. Not sure how Brandon knew that the man died on impact, but that Nana could have been saved, or maybe he just chose the nearest person to help and couldn't rescue both. Either way, rest in peace, Grandpa. So now we have 7 passengers trapped in the back of a wrecked plane surviving in an air pocket under the ocean. Things are looking a bit grim, but Brandon takes control of the situation, telling them all that it would be difficult and dangerous to make it to that hole in the side of the airplane. However, with the black box in the transponder, help should already be on the way. All they have to do is wait for it. Of course, they need to make sure they have enough oxygen in order to do so. And wouldn't you know it, the airline forgot to refill the emergency air cylinders normally kept in the back of the aircraft. Because of this, Brandon, being the badass hero that he is, volunteers to swim back to the front of the plane in order to grab a medical oxygen tank a passenger was using. Things go fine at first, with him finding not only the tank, but also Hank's hat to give to his family as a memento, when suddenly a shark swims in through the plane's gap and starts attacking the bodyguard. Didn't seem as hard to make it through that hole like Brandon made it sound, at least not to the shark. He survives this encounter, managing to deliver what he scavenged to the group, but he suddenly apologizes, claiming they will have to go on without him, as he lets himself be taken back by the shark. Wow. Thought he was going to last a bit longer. What with the movie opening on him and everything? I mean, all he had to do was patch up his wound. It wasn't that deep, and he hadn't lost much blood. We even learned there's a professional grade first aid kit back there with them all. But alright, guess he just wanted to retire early. So instead, the group uses that first aid kit on Kyle, who apparently broke his arm during the crash. Thankfully for him, Nana happens to have been a nurse in the army, so she pops it back into place and makes a splint out of magazines for him. Don't think this nurse's memory is too accurate though, since you're not supposed to pop a break back into place. That's meant to be done for a dislocation. Also, magazines probably aren't the sturdiest thing to make a splint out of. I would have used a dining tray or pieces of the plane that have broken off. But maybe that was the best they could have found, and it's better than nothing. How was the rest of everyone's decisions though? Well, not much anyone could have done to avoid the initial plane crashing, of course, other than the pilot watching where they're going and steering clear of the birds. I mean, you have one small group of obstacles in an area that's majority vacant space. How do you hit something? But the passengers certainly could have done something after landing, and that's making their way to the nearest emergency exit. All aircrafts that go within 50 miles of a body of water are required to carry a life raft. All they had to do was grab this and get out, and afterwards just float and wait for help to arrive. Much safer than waiting at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, they didn't even know the plane was going to get stuck on some rocks. For all they knew, it could have kept sinking further and further down, dooming them to a watery grave regardless of an air pocket or not. But let's say we do make the mistake of waiting too long and ending up in a sunken vessel, we still should now make an attempt to escape. Waiting isn't a terrible idea, but it also isn't as guaranteed for survival as getting to the surface would be, where help could see and get to us much more easily. And if we wait too long with help not arriving, we could end up too weak to attempt an escape. Best to try it now while we have the most stamina and strength for it. So once the aircraft settles, we grab the raft if possible still, put on a life preserver, and swim to the surface. We should be able to make it there without drowning, even at this depth, as the flotation devices rush us up. Worst case scenario, we pass out on the way, at which point the life jacket would still carry us to the surface, where we can come to again and survive. Assuming we don't aspirate too much seawater in the process, of course. Still think it's a better idea than sitting in a sunken death trap. Brandon says it's too dangerous and difficult to make it to the hole in the hull, but I'm not sure why he makes this claim, as it's shown to be quite easily accessible. I mean, a shark sure has no problem swimming through it for a snack, so a much smaller sized human should have no issue going through it. But thanks to his claims, the group is deciding to stay on board. If we're going to make the choice to stay down in this hydroplane, we are going to need oxygen. And getting that personal air tank was smart, but not going to provide a lot. Still though, every little bit counts, and I think it was worth the attempt. Assuming, of course, we don't end up as fish food for it like Brandon did. But if oxygen is what we need, the airplane itself should be able to provide plenty. Those masks that fall down during an emergency aren't just for show, and should supply plenty of O2 for everyone to wait things out a bit longer. Of course, that's if the system was damaged in the crash, which it very much could have been, causing all that precious oxygen to be released into the water around us. Still though, they don't even entertain this idea in the film, and it would be worth a try at the very least to check. The group is keeping it together the best they can, trying to wait patiently for help to arrive. But that's proving difficult, as the fuselage leaks in some places and sharks are seen out the windows bumping into the side of the plane as they inspect it. Eventually, one of these bumps is too much and the airplane shifts enough to begin sliding further down the side of the reef, dramatically stopping just as it teeters over the side of an underwater ravine. Great, now they're even deeper in the water. Thanks to this, Ava decides that now is maybe the time to ignore Brandon's advice of waiting things out and to actually attempt an escape out the side of the plane. Better late than never, I suppose, but they really should have attempted this sooner, as now it will be even more challenging. For example, they have the complication of sharks also being in the area. However, Rosa claims she learned in school that they don't like bubbles. This, as far as I'm aware, is only a myth, but one that does generally prove more successful than not in studies, as sharks are typically more scared of divers and their equipment than we are of them. Guess it's better than nothing and will have to do as a potential repellent. The next part of their big brain plan is to search for scuba gear in the luggage hold, accessible from the back of the plane. Air tanks won't be in there, but wetsuits, masks, and flippers could and would prove very useful. Wetsuits especially, as the biggest threat of waiting in the middle of the ocean would be hypothermia. As they're gathering all the necessary supplies, help is actually seen out the window in the form of 2 rescue divers. That's great! Unfortunately, the 2 divers don't realize they are in a movie, meaning sharks naturally act like slasher villains, sneaking up from behind their victims at the opportune time to mercilessly and violently end them. On top of this, the helicopter that dropped off the rescue divers is now low on fuel, so they mark the area before having to return to base. Looks like our group is on their own again for a while now. Ava realizes though that the deceased divers won't be needing their tanks anymore, and gets the idea for them to grave rob the oxygen for their own escape. While she's looking for it though, Jed slips like a klutz and falls in the water and of course takes his sweet time getting back out, allowing a shark to snack on his foot. Ouchies! Nurse Nana is on the case again, quickly using seatbelts as a tourniquet for his leg. That should hold him for now, but they need to get out of here quick if he and the rest of them want to survive. So they finally enact their plan from a while ago and search the luggage hold. Apparently they only talked about doing that earlier and were just looking through the storage compartments in the aisles instead. Not the most productive group here for sure, but she thankfully does find some gear. Only 4 wetsuits are there though, but hey, that's better than the none they had before. This somewhat good news is quickly soured though when they realize Jed has passed away despite their best efforts. Well, that's tragic, but hey, on the bright side, that's one less wetsuit they need to fight over now. Seriously though, that seemed way too fast for Jed to bleed out already. I don't think Nana put that tourniquet on tight enough. That, and it seems she neglected to also have anyone apply pressure to his wound or bandage it up with a towel or blanket. He really shouldn't have passed away within minutes like this if treated properly. How was the rest of their decisions made so far though? Well, same as before, I think we should leave the plane and head for the surface as soon as possible. Sure, that's more difficult now that it slid down some, but should still be just as possible. But looking around for gear to make that easier and safer isn't a bad idea, as long as they have the time to spare, and don't make stupid decisions, such as casually staying in shark-filled water after falling in. As for the rescuers, they should have realized the waters had the potential for dangerous wildlife. They are claimed to be professionals, yet didn't bring any gear or tools to help with search and rescue or defending themselves from danger. Feels more like a poorly written way for the writers of the film to just get working scuba gear to our survivors here. And Ava's idea of using that gear sounds good in theory, but we have to account for how deep we are before using compressed oxygen, because that's what can lead to getting decompression sickness, also known as the bends. For those unaware, breathing from a scuba tank at a depth of 30 feet or greater affects the balance of gases within our bodies, causing health risks if we rise to the surface too quickly. Countering this is simple, we would just have to rise slowly. But with sharks all around and the plan being to make a mad dash for the surface with flotation devices lifting us even quicker, the O2 tank suddenly becomes a detriment more than a useful tool for survival. We should only use it if we know how to properly and in the correct and safe manner. Before Ava and the group can mourn the death of Jed, the plane starts to slide once again, leading to the front of it snapping off completely. Seems it's sink or swim time with their plan to escape, and that plan is to have everyone get into a wetsuit, grab the dead diver's O2 tank to help them reach the surface, and open extra life preservers as needed to create shark-repelling bubbles. That's certainly a plan, alright? Hope it works. But wait, with only 4 wetsuits and 5 survivors, who's going to go without? Well, that would be Nana, who apparently was a first-class swimmer back in the day and claims she can go without it. That's quite impressive and bold. But if her swimming is anything like her nursing, I don't think her chances are all that great. The group enact their plan now, scared of course, but showing courage as they take a deep breath and dive in. Ava leads the way with Rosa and almost immediately comes face to face with a shark. But the bubble plan seems to be working, as it instantly makes the sharks disappear somehow. Meanwhile, as the others start to follow, Nana intentionally stays behind, as the back end of the plane finally fills with ocean water. Guess she wasn't such a great swimmer after all, or maybe she just didn't want to be stuck taking care of Rosa on her own. Either way, rest in peace, Nana. Things don't go smoothly for Kyle either, who is too scared to swim through the plane. Danilo attempts to go back for him, but one of those villainous slasher sharks magically appears and eats the frightened man whole. Seriously, how did that thing get past everyone else to make it to the back there? Oh well, rest in pieces, Kyle. The remaining 3 survivors successfully find the dead man's oxygen tank and get some breaths of fresh air. With only 2 regulators, Ava takes a deep breath and passes it off to Danilo for him and Rosa to take it to the surface with them. For some reason, she doesn't follow them immediately, and this hesitation allows for a shark to corner her back into the plane. But the shark realizes she's wearing her plot armor, so it leaves her be to go and snack on the bodies in the back. As Ava swims away from the beast, the plane finally fully falls over the edge. This causes her to fight against gravity and fall even deeper, as she opts to leave out the front of the vessel. I would have still used that hole in the side, as that would be a faster escape, but hey, at least she makes it out. After narrowly avoiding the plane's wings, once out, she now has to make it to the surface, after already holding her breath for a good while, exerting herself, and being dragged further down. With all these factors combined, she actually doesn't make it and passes out before reaching the surface. Seems she's going out the same way as her mother did. But wait, just as mentioned before, the flotation device still takes her up, where she eventually starts automatically breathing again and regains consciousness. Just in time to see the rescue chopper that already picked up Danilo and Rosa prior. To top everything off, Ava just so happened to find Rosa's stuffed teddy bear again floating on the surface and returns it to her once more on the helicopter. But the little girl throws the bear back to the sea, claiming she doesn't need him anymore. Geez, talk about ungrateful. I'd hold on to that thing the rest of my days, as a reminder of what I've survived and the grandparents I lost. But hey, to each their own. While a bit short, was there any part of their plan that could have been done better? Well, Nana of course should have at least tried to escape. She not only has a granddaughter to look out for still, but a rich history of experience that seems wasteful to just throw away. Maybe she didn't want to go on without her husband anymore, but that still seems like a sad reason to give up on your own life. Don't base your existence on a single other person still being around. Remember, you're worth staying alive and living all on your own. Kyle should have also tried a bit harder. I completely understand being scared. I mean, who wouldn't be in that situation? But at some point, survival instincts have to overcome the fear of not making it out. I mean, staying back and panicking helps ourselves a lot less than moving forward and panicking would. At least that gives us a chance at surviving. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to overcome it. And when your life's on the line and going to end regardless, face that fear for chance, instead of accepting it as a guaranteed loss. As for Ava, I'm not sure why she hesitates while the other 2 inflate their life jackets. This even goes against her initial plan of sharing the oxygen tank on the way up. Again, probably more so done because the writers of the film just wanted to make it more of a dramatic escape. But if you're in a serious situation like this, don't hesitate. Those few seconds could cost you your life. But hey, in the end, at least 3 people escaped. Probably could have been more if they had acted quicker or used more common sense, but a few survivors are better than no survivors. So remember to not hesitate in life, be courageous when it comes to facing your fears, and never give up. You can make it up and out of the depths if you try. And with that said, thanks for watching as always, my friends. Take care and binge another one.